I was going to be without another starter for the bowl game against Missouri. We talk about that. The latest in the transfer portal, all today, Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, hit that subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. If you're listening on the podcast side, 5-star reviews. Appreciate all of you. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, practice is underway in Nashville. The Iowa football team is getting ready for that. We're going to talk plenty about the bowl game here today. Also, David Eickholt from 24/7 Sports, HawkeyeInsider.com. He's going to stop in and we get the latest inside the transfer portal. In fact, let's start right there, as we're going to talk plenty about this bowl matchup against Missouri as we get closer to the game. I understand it's not like the old days, and certainly the palpable buzz that you got in the past is not there anymore as it pertains to just an individual bowl game. But that aside, we'll talk about it. We'll get ready for it. It's a football game, and it's one more chance to watch this Hawkeye team and one more chance to watch the seniors go out there. But one of the seniors that is not going to be there is a starting offensive lineman, starting center, as they will be playing this one without Logan Jones. And, Logan Jones is a guy that we've talked about a lot, right? Logan Jones is a player that was much maligned early in his career. 2 years ago, you go back to his sophomore campaign, he made the transformation from defensive line over to offensive line and the center position, much like Tyler Linderbaum. And we saw initially, athleticism certainly has it, strength, no doubt, but he had issues early in his career, and he turned himself into a very good center, took those immense physical gifts that he had and turned himself into a pretty dang good offensive lineman. And you definitely saw the growth out of him, certainly this season. There was an improvement last year and a big step forward this year. And the consistency, I think most important, is what we saw him at that center position. Well, looks like he's not going to play. So Chad Leistikow and Tom Kaker, a couple of the Iowa beat guys that are in Nashville already, they were at practice earlier today, and looking at their report said that we see Logan Jones, he's got a big mid on his hand. He's all taped up, all bandaged up, and he's got the cast on. Well, as a center, and it being his snapping hand, going to be difficult for him to play with that one and certainly play the center position. So what it looks like is Tyler Elsbury is going to be the guy that will get the start at the center position. And go back to last season, the game in Wrigley Field where Jones left the game because of injury, as they continue to pile up in that one. And I thought Elsbury came in and the offense was much more efficient when he was in there at the center position. It's not to say that it's an upgrade. It's not to say that it's going to be better or that there's not going to be any hiccups, but Tyler Elsbury's proven when he's gone in there at center, also has been in at guard during different times of his career, that he can at minimum be an adequate guy in the middle of that offensive line. And then you couple it with what you can see potentially from him. We're not talking about a big step back that we normally see at this position. So something good. And you couple that with the fact that Tyler Elsbury, a guy that, boy, there'd be a lot of years, a lot of seasons where somebody comes back like he did, would see a lot more playing time than he did this season. And just didn't happen because Iowa didn't have injuries. And there was a reason that this offensive line performed as well as it has probably in the last 6-7 years when you talk about the totality of it. And the reason's very simple. Yes, they're veteran, they're older, they have experience, they improved all those things. But here's the number one. They were healthy. And when you have a healthy offensive line, the continuity that goes along with it, you're going to be able to do some good things. And we certainly saw that in the running game out of Iowa. And the offensive line had a lot to do that with that this season. So that's kind of the newsy item that came out today. I also had an opportunity to see Hank Brown, who was practicing with the team, the Auburn transfer, him throw it around a little bit, along with Jimmy Sullivan, the incoming true freshman quarterback from Indiana. So both those guys are able to practice. They cannot play, though. So they will not be available to play in the bowl game. It will be getting the start. Jackson Stratton will be the backup, and it'll be Brendan Sullivan at the starting spot at the quarterback position. So that's what it's going to be on that front. Also, a lot of talk about next year and the offensive line. It's something that we've talked about. And, if you know anything about me and the way that I decipher football, I look at football, offensive line is something that is paramount each and every year. Now, Can I grade film? Do I know exactly what I'm looking for? No. But I have a general understanding of what to look for. But the biggest thing is that continuity and what they're going to have next season. So when Iowa was in the portal and they were shopping around and looking at the big guy, Anawa from Rice, that has since committed to Ohio State, that made a lot of sense because you look at the rest of the offensive line next season. Jennings Dunker back at right tackle. You start right there. All Big Ten honors this season. We know the power and size that he has out there. I never believed that he can make the move to left tackle. I just don't think he has the foot speed to do it. He is more of your tweener between a guard and a right tackle. I just don't think the athleticism and the speed is there for him to be a left tackle. Now, in a pinch, we'll see. And that very well could change, but I think that's what you have with Jennings Dunker, and right tackle is certainly the best spot for him. You mentioned Logan Jones coming back in the middle, another starter coming back next season, and Bo Stevens. And then you throw in Cade Pieper, who was the sixth offensive lineman a bunch this year. When they added an extra offensive lineman, usually on goal-to-go situations, but every once in a while on some third and fourth and shorts, you'd see Cade Pieper come into the game as that sixth offensive lineman. Also saw a little bit of work as a guard in some of the rotation. And when Stevens went down with an injury, he was also in there quite a bit when that happened for that game and a half or so that Stevens was out. But that aside, you got four guys that you're confident at. And left tackle is the one spot you just don't have. It looks like Trevor Locke is going to be that guy. Unless they can find somebody in the transfer portal they believe that will come in and be, and no doubt about it, starter at the left tackle position, that it's going to be the youngster Trevor Locke. He'll be a redshirt sophomore next season. Remember, Locke is a guy, I go back to a couple of years ago. We talked about this in the recruiting of that big offensive tackle that broke a lot of hearts and frustrated a lot of people, Caden Proctor. If Caden Proctor was never a thing, we never had to go through the drama and the soap opera that was, and boy, there was a lot of that, of Caden Proctor. If it was just a year where your best offensive lineman in terms of recruiting was Trevor Locke, I think there'd be a lot more buzz and a lot more excitement about him. He is one of the better offensive linemen that Iowa's got recently. You look at his numbers as an offensive tackle coming in. Kid from Indianapolis had some really good offers. He was, looking at his recruiting profile, had some offers from some of the, not just Minnesota's of the world, things like that, but yeah, he had Michigan State, Cincinnati, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisville, Michigan, and Ohio State were at least after him. Tennessee was also involved. So there were some big time programs that were looking at Trevor Locke. Is it a little bit early? Do you want to see a redshirt sophomore starting at left tackle? Not necessarily, but I think this is a good spot. And what I've continued to hear about Locke is good things about him dating back to when he arrived on campus. Opportunity is there. Again, if they can find a left tackle, they're not going to say no, but I believe that they got a good one here, and Locke's going to be the guy at left tackle, it appears, for next season. That's as it's constructed right now. Let's get a little bit deeper into this bowl matchup as we're going to be joined by David Eickholt from 24/7 Sports. A look at the Hawkeyes, a look at the bowl game, and the big question that remains in the transfer portal. This is something that I hear all the time from people. Is it the lack of funds that I was struggling with? Is that why they continue to strike out or are missing in some of their top level prospects in the portal? Or is it the messaging that Iowa sent? We'll talk about that coming up with David Eickholt. Some portal talk and the bowl game as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All you have to do is visit the FanDuel Sportsbook app and get set up. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players are going to score a touchdown or how many points a team's going to score in the game. You can take a look at that on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. So many ways to get involved. Get that touchdown score. How many players, but points a team's going to score. You can just go that route, and it's so simple and fun to play on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
David Eickholt joins us, HawkeyeInsider.com. His coverage of the Hawkeyes Bowl, the Music City Bowl, I believe starts on Saturday. David Eickholt joins us. Hello, David. When do you get to Nashville?
Hey, guys. Hope you're doing well. Hope your Christmas was very merry. I will be there Saturday morning. I'll be flying out of Des Moines, so I'm sure I'll have a few Iowa fans on the flight. Really, really looking forward to getting down there. I've told you guys off air and probably on air that Nashville is one of my favorite cities. So I think they do a great job at the bowl game, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. What kind of attendance do you think, as opposed to previous years? You think Hawkeye fans it's drivable, which certainly works in their favor. Will they support this game as they normally do, David?
I got to tell you, man, that's probably one of my biggest questions heading into this bowl game. The weather does not look great. I think it's going to be probably in the mid-50s, and it's going to be raining all weekend. So not great for the attendance part of it. I think if Iowa was going to Florida, at least it's a warm destination there to kind of ring in the new year. But, maybe Broadway has some appeal if people stay through New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. But, I'm going to be very, very intrigued. I do think having Jay Higgins, Nick Jackson, and a really, really likable and popular senior class is probably going to help the case a little bit, though.
I'm with you, and I think there's going to be a lot of people, maybe not as it pertains to actual attendance, but more intrigued by this game. We see the opt-outs. We see kind of the way it is in Iowa, having these guys, so many of them that very easily get ready for the draft, don't want to put the wear and tear on the potential of injury, and seeing guys like Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins and Luke Lachey putting it on the line one final time. I think by the time we do get there and we finally get to game day, that it's going to build. But David, you've been doing this for a while now. You know what it used to be like just 3, 4, 5 years ago, the anticipation and what it is. I do my podcast, and if I bring up the bowl game, I just see the numbers plummet. Nobody wants to hear it still. I mean, we're 4 days away. What are you seeing on the website? Is it the same kind of thing? Is it just a portal all the time?
I think it's portal right now, and you're right. The landscape of everything has changed. And, I think people might have some excitement about the bowl game. It depending on how people's expectations were heading into the season, right? So if Iowa had been expected to go 6-6, but they went 8-4, I think there's a lot of people that are really optimistic and really looking forward to the bowl game, seeing how they've sort of overachieved from the preseason notion. But think about this year. There were some of us that thought they were going to be a college football playoff potential team, or at least a team that is going to take it up until the very end and then maybe just miss the cut, right?
Yep.
And now we're talking about an 8-4 team. Another walk-off field goal against Nebraska. Of course, that's been the case almost every single year, it feels like at this point.
Yep.
So I still think there's a little bit of looming disappointment around the season. And you combine that with the transfer portal, which I don't know if we're going to get to, but we will a lot about it.
Yep.
I think a lot of people are very frustrated with some of the things that are going on right now. So it is amazing how things have changed. I do think it's eventually going to level out, but I got to tell you, and this is just from an overall bowl season perspective, when did having more football become a bad thing?
Right. Good to agree with
this
you.
bowl season has been so much fun. I don't know if you guys watched the Potato Bowl that happened. I was live talking about my over I had in that game. Electric way to hit it in overtime. And then how about the San Jose State game?
The Hawaii Bowl was fantastic.
It was phenomenal.
Yep.
And again, another over was hit in overtime. I had a blast. A lot of fun. So, I hope people kind of just level out and realize that having football is a good thing. And ultimately, we've sort of downplayed. There are going to be so many guys that this is the last time they put on the uniform. The last time they ever get to play competitive football. So I kind of think, yes, we're all about the Hollywood, the glitz and the glamour of bowl, of college football and always on to the next big thing. Let's get back to the roots of it. Let's enjoy it. And that's why I'm looking forward to the game, on Monday when Iowa plays. And it's the only bowl game on that day. So it's probably going to have a pretty decent audience.
I would think. And that's where I wanted to go with you as my follow-up. Why 1:30, though? What's the significance? I get there's Monday Night Football, so you got to be done by, what does their pregame start? 6?
5.
Is it 5?
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, there's your answer. But just the 1:30, because there's a lot of folks that are off today, off Friday, off the weekend, obviously, but then they head back for a couple of days before they get the new. It's just timing wise, 1:30 on a Monday afternoon. That kind of stinks, David.
No, it does. But, I'd also think about like this, like how many people are going to be productive at work the day before New Year's Eve at 1:30? Everybody's going to be looking for kind of an...
Well, hopefully your two hosts are.
Yeah. Well, what the other side of it, too, is you need to remember the Music City Bowl typically is on New Year's Eve. So this is a new spot for them as well. So I think that's also part of the equation. Of course, being the only game there. I think not wanting to compete with Monday Night Football. I think that's also going to play a part in the equation. And I have not checked what the college basketball slate is going to look like. But remember, a lot of the major conferences are getting in the midst of Big Ten play around that time. Because if you think about the day before, Iowa women's basketball gets back to it against Purdue on the 29th. And, of course, Tin Roof and Nashville's, I think, having a little get-together for the Iowa fans in that area. So I will be there, hoping to meet some people there as well. But I think given the college basketball slate, given the way Monday Night Football is going, I think the timing of it makes sense. I probably would have rather preferred a 3 o'clock start or a 3:30 start from that standpoint. But again, I think when you're the only college football game on that day, and a lot of people are just craving for bowl season or just football to watch, I'm not really too worried about the numbers. I'm more worried about the total, the over, which is set at like 40. And I think that's pretty high right now, given all these opt-outs and the way both offenses have kind of been trending.
And the rain.
That's not going to help you.
And the rain. Yeah.
All right, David, let's go portaling. And got a commitment, defensive tackle. Great. Need that.
Central Florida, Michigan, right?
Central Michigan, yeah. Okay. Moving on from that. Jonah Pace, right?
Yeah.
I continue every time that somebody else opts for another school. Well, Iowa doesn't have enough money. Is that it? Or is it the messaging that is struggling right now? What is a bigger deterrent right now why Iowa seems to be struggling? Is it the messaging or is it the money?
I don't think it's the money at all. Yeah. And I'm not saying Iowa's among the richest schools, because I don't think that's true, but I don't think Iowa is struggling. Like some people have kind of said. Here's the reality, and people are not going to like hearing this, but let's call a spade a spade. And I wrote this in my column when Iowa did not land Bo Prevula. Until Iowa gets proven production, they're not going to land proven playmakers in the passing game. I like Tim Lester's ideas. He has done spectacular this season. This is nothing against Tim Lester, because if you look at the rushing numbers, highest has been since 2002. Caleb Johnson was phenomenal. The offensive line play was as consistent at least over the past 5 or 6 years, right? The passing schemes and the talent is still not there. Getting Hank Brown is nice, but there are only so many guys when they're in the portal that you can say, hey, you know what? You can be the difference maker. You can make the change. Well, the change needs to be in place, because how many schools already have it in place, right? The passing game has been in the 100s for the last few years. It's not an attractive destination for wide receivers. Iowa has not had an all-conference wide receiver since 2011.
Jesus.
That's not how you get proven playmakers, proven wide receivers. Quarterback-wise, C.J. Beathard's made a nice living in the NFL. I thought Nate Stanley would last a little bit longer than he did. But they're not churning out quarterbacks right now. Until Iowa proves that they can overcome the notions, and right now the harsh reality of the passing game, they are not going to land these guys. So that is why next year is such a big year, in my opinion. And look, there could still be more people that enter the portal. I still think they're going to look for another quarterback if the situation makes sense, and they still might land another quarterback that makes sense. But right now, the options are dwindling until the passing game proves that it's at least trending in the right direction. Because, again, even if you look statistically, it's a little bit better. On film, it's still not the prettiest tape out there, right?
Yep.
So proven production, that's how you get proven playmakers. Next year's a big, big year, in my opinion.
So Prevula, the $1.5 million that Missouri apparently gave him to play, Iowa, at least what I read, was about to match that or had the wherewithal to match that?
Iowa probably could have matched it. From what I've been told, Iowa was prepared to go 7 figures for Bo Prevula. So that's why I'm telling you the money is not an issue. Yep. And the other side of it, too, is, again, I do not envy Brad. I think he's done a really nice job. And remember, he's working for free.
Yep.
Right? Like, that's the other part of it. But you need to think about this. Do you offer a guy more than you think he's worth because of the excitement he could bring and the influx of donations that could bring? Do you want to have that big of a risk? And that's something, he and the Swarm Collective have probably had to work through a handful of times and might have to work through even more if there is another player that ends up entering the portal that they are potentially interested in.
Yeah, I wonder if the Cade McNamara whole thing left a bad taste, right? Because the excitement was off the charts.
Absolutely.
It was off the charts. It was the same position. Fascinating discussion.
So what's left? I mean,
is there a quarterback out there that are knocking on his door?
Quarterback, and then what other position are they still targeting? Looking for a speed guy at wide receiver, and what else?
Yep, they're looking at a speed guy at wide receiver, looking at Sam Phelps from Chattanooga, who just recently completed his official visit. From what I've been told, it's down to Virginia Tech and Iowa for the most part there, but Virginia Tech is also hosting a few other wide receivers after the dead period. So, the longer that goes on, the worse I kind of feel about it. That one's kind of up in the air. And I do think Iowa is going to target another cornerback if it makes sense. I think that's what they should do. I think they need another cornerback. They're set at linebacker. They might, toy around with an offensive tackle, but we know what that market's going to look like as well. They were in the top 2 for the Rice offensive tackle who ended up going to Ohio State. And who knows how much money he got because he was a borderline day 2 NFL draft pick this season. Really, really good player. But I do think right now, quarterback, I don't think there's any of them that they like in the portal, but there are a number of guys I would keep an eye on if they end up entering the portal. Not that Iowa's looking and, going behind the scenes on certain things, but certain players, if they enter the portal, I think would be a perfect fit and Iowa would at least have a realistic chance with.
David Eickholt, HawkeyeInsider.com. David, Happy New Year to you. We appreciate what you do for us. Travel safe down to Nashville. We'll look forward to your coverage, and we'll talk to you in 2025. David Eickholt, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate you. Take care. Happy New Year.
Good to talk to you. Thanks, David. David Eickholt, as we check in on the Hawks in the portal, the bowl game, et cetera, et cetera. So they were going to match the 1.5. Is that your reporting too?
Yeah, everything that I've heard. Money is not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a money concern right now. That's why I just put it that way to David. It's not money. And everybody, you see the excuse. You see it, Ken. You're on Twitter all the time. Oh, I just didn't have the money. No. This is messaging. This is not selling. That's the problem. And it's not just Pribula. That's on its own. You want to play at Missouri, you want to play in the SEC, you want to play the system, fine.
Yep.
But they're looking at more than just quarterback. And they got a quarterback already in Hank Brown. And maybe that's a scared Pribula in a small way away, whatever it is. But you look at these other positions. They need depth at defensive line. They need a cornerback.
Yep.
They need a wide receiver. They need an offensive tackle. And they're swinging and missing. And coming up second, gets you nothing.
Yeah.
Second place, horseshoes and hand grenades.
And the portal's been open for a while.
Yes.
Right? What do you make of this real quick? Did you see this Phil Parker fan on Twitter? So 2021, Tory Taylor punted 18 times. I beg your pardon, 80 times.
Okay, yes.
2022, Tory Taylor, 13 games, punted 82 times. 2023, 14 games, Tory Taylor punted 93 times. Reese Dakin this year, 12 games so far, has punted 60. Improving, right? That's what I took from it too. So, I mean, there's something for Fester to gloat about. Offense is getting a little bit better. Punting's down 20 fewer punts a year.
Have to show an ability to throw the ball.
I agree.
Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by the Game Time app. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means bringing people together at live events, and the experience is just that much better, and it's the perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets. Finding those Game Time picks, absolutely incredible on the Game Time app, but that's not all. They're all in pricing. My favorite feature of the Game Time app, toggling this feature shows the total upfront. No more worrying about surprise fees at checkout. Know exactly what you're paying for your ticket at that level. Seat views as well. You can get a panoramic view from your seat. Know exactly where you're going to be inside the stadium, inside the arena before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets and do it with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. So let's take our first peek at Missouri. We talked with David Eickholt a little bit about Missouri. A couple of things jump out. And again, what we normally do is we're getting ready for a football game, just kind of taking a look at the statistical profile of the team. Now, one thing and a caveat I want to put in there right away. Missouri, yes, they played in the SEC this year. They played an SEC schedule, so you think, okay, that's a team that went 9-3 in the SEC. They better be pretty dang good, right? Well, then you go a little bit deeper. And you look the schedule that they were dealt this year. Vanderbilt, better for Vanderbilt standards, not a great team. They went to Texas A&M, they were obliterated, 41-10. They took on Auburn at home, they escaped by 4. They got blanked by Alabama, 34-0. They beat one of the worst Oklahoma teams in the last 2 decades by 7. They need to come back, in fact, to make that happen. They lost to South Carolina. They beat a bad Mississippi State team, and they beat a bad Arkansas team. This is not exactly a team that played the who's who of the SEC this year. So that's one thing I want to put in there. And when you look at the statistical numbers, maybe not overreact to what we see. But third down offensive conversions, they're 16th in the country. Defensively, they're 4th in the country. Okay, that's a little bit concerning there. Couple other numbers that jumped out. The Page first down defense, 3rd in the country, giving up first downs this year. Offensively, 64th. Haven't fumbled, haven't turned it over, and they win field time of possession. So those are all numbers that don't exactly vibe with Iowa football. And one thing we're going to, when we dive a little bit deeper into this game, jump into just the way that Iowa's played in these bigger games lately. They've lost their last 8 games against ranked opponents, and not just lost those games, really outside of one, they've been obliterated. The offense has not been shown up. And what should the game plan be for Iowa football? What do we want to see out of this bowl game? In a bowl game, that means nothing in the grand scheme of things. In a bowl game that, yes, it'd be nice to see the departing guys, to see Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins and Luke Lachey and on and on and on, to see them one more time get a Hawkeye win and put a smile on Kirk's face, and he can tie Woody Hayes' record and all that. However, what makes more sense? To go out there and see what you can do in the passing game, to try to build something going forward into next season, or to win a bowl game that people will forget about a week later. You know who won last year's Music City Bowl? I don't. Do you remember the last time that Iowa was in the Music City Bowl against Kentucky? Ho-hum. It's a bowl game in this new environment of college sports. So that's what I want to see. We're going to dive more into that when we have some more time coming up on tomorrow's show. But today, the messaging remains clear. What is the issue with Iowa football? That was topic number 1 today. Why is Iowa struggling in the transfer portal? It's not money. Yes, there are certain programs that have more money. It's not those just strictly a money. Stop hiding behind that excuse. I believe there might be something off the messaging, or it's just as simple as this. You finish second, and sometimes you need a little bit of momentum. They don't have it right now, but Indiana has momentum. Iowa State's filled in their gaps, and Iowa has brought in Hank Brown and Jonah Pace, a quarterback that isn't a surefire starter, and a rotational piece of defensive tackle. That's it. That's a little bit concerning going into next year. With 23 departing players, more work needs to be done. And is it going to happen? We'll see. More about that the coming days. We get ready for the bowl game. I will be back on the hardwood coming up this weekend with the women's basketball team, and Monday with the men's basketball team and their final non-conference game. The Iowa women will get going against Purdue in Big Ten play for them. It is a lot going on. Christmas time. Hope you had a great Christmas, by the way. Hope everybody enjoyed it. The couple youngsters at home, a 9 and 5-year-old. Oh boy, always special and always a great time there. And a little Hawkeye gear maybe under the tree for you this season. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Happy holidays. Thanks for being with us. We will be back with you tomorrow on a Friday. More on the bowl game. We'll start to dive a little bit deeper, look into next season, and see if we can find anything that would make sense. Plus, the portal is always open. There's always news. We'll continue to jump into that. Plus, a lot of boots on the ground out there in Nashville. We'll have Tom Kakert, who is in there from HawkeyeReport.com. He will join us as he is in Nashville, and we'll get a firsthand report for what he's seeing in the Music City. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.